When you think of Elvis Presley, flashy movies and dazzling performances come to mind. But sometimes behind the glitz, there's a story that's more about fun than fame. One such tale involves Elvis, the glamorous Ann-Margret, and a film that was more about laughter than plot. It's a story filled with music, romance, and a dash of Hollywood absurdity. In 1964, Elvis starred in It Happened at the World's Fair, a movie so out there it's almost fun to think about. The plot. Elvis plays two identical twins, one of whom falls for Ann-Margret's character, and they're both called twins. Yes, it's as confusing as it sounds, but let's dive in, shall we? The film starts with Elvis, sporting a blonde wig, trying to drag his twin out of his trailer. He's worried people will laugh at him if he's seen in a wig. Sounds ridiculous, it gets worse. The movie was made on a shoestring budget of just $800,000 thanks to Colonel Parker teaming up with Sam Katzman, known for making quick, cheap films. This partnership meant standards were thrown out the window. Colonel Parker, Elvis' manager, was known for his tough negotiating tactics. When a writer asked for money to evaluate the film's script, Parker flat out refused, saying it would cost too much. This was Parker's way of keeping costs down, but it also meant the script was not getting the respect it deserved. Elvis, as always, had little say in the movies he made. He'd get a script, dislike it, and then perform in it anyway. His attitude was legendary. Biographer Albert Goldman described Elvis as a mule pulling a plow, meaning he'd do what he was told, no matter how silly the task. Despite the film's flaws, the music was a highlight. Elvis performed a range of songs, from the catchy title tune to a bluesy version of I Need Somebody to Lean On. There was even a dance number inspired by La Bamba called Do the Vega, though that got cut from the final movie. The soundtrack, however, remained a mix of fun and forgettable tunes, with some songs that were more cringeworthy than catchy. Now let's talk about the chemistry between Elvis and Ann-Margret. It was electric, to say the least. Their dance scenes were steamy and full of tension. Ann-Margret, known for her provocative performances, really upstaged Elvis at times. There's a memorable moment during a dance sequence where the chemistry is palpable. But the film's ending let things hang, leaving fans wanting more. Interestingly, Elvis was so taken with Ann-Margret that he asked Colonel Parker to manage her. Parker, ever the businessperson, agreed to split his time between Elvis and Ann-Margret for a while. Elvis even got Ann-Margret a fruit machine with 3 guitars as a gift, which now sits in his Graceland mansion. But Elvis' personal life was also heating up. In September 1963, he started his own football team, Elvis Presley Enterprises. It was a quirky venture, with celebrities and friends playing against each other. Elvis himself was a quarterback, though his running back, a young PJ Proby, was the one making tackles. Despite its flaws, It Happened at the World's Fair remains a fun footnote in Elvis's filmography. It's a reminder that even the king of rock and roll wasn't immune to Hollywood's B-movie magic. And while the film might not have changed the world, its music and the chemistry between Elvis and Ann-Margret still entertain us today. During the mid to late 1960s, Elvis Presley continued to explore music, both in professional settings and at home. This period was marked by his attempts to blend different styles and find new sounds. In 1964, Elvis was still on leave from the Army. He got together with friends like Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash at Sun Studio. It felt more like a home recording session than a formal one. They were loose, laughing, and having fun. They recorded songs like When the Saints Go Marching In, playing around with the lyrics and enjoying themselves. This kind of relaxed vibe was typical for Elvis when he was with friends. Around this time, Elvis was also thinking about Anita Wood, a woman he was close to. They played music together, with Elvis showing her how to sing like Connie Francis rather than Julie London. They performed songs like Who's Sorry Now and When the Swallows Come Back to Capistrano. These moments were casual and fun, showcasing Elvis's playful side. Elvis also spent time at his friend Eddie Faddle's house in Texas. They were waiting to be deployed to Germany. Here, Elvis worked on I Understand Just How You Feel, a song that started in a high tenor and built up to a big finish. This song, based on an old tune called Auld Lang Syne, showed Elvis experimenting with different sounds. Although he didn't record it himself, it later became a hit for another group. In 1959, back in Germany, Elvis recorded gospel songs at home using a Grundig recorder. He sang I Asked the Lord and mixed in some Jingle Bells. He also did stunning covers of Jim Reeves' I'm Beginning to Forget You and Nat King Cole's Mona Lisa. These recordings highlight Elvis's love for gospel and his ability to put his own spin on familiar songs. One memorable session was when Elvis recorded Danny Boy and Soldier Boy. Danny Boy is a sad song about a soldier who died, and Elvis brought his own emotional touch to it. Soldier Boy was written by David Jones of the Four Fellows while Elvis was in Korea. Elvis even tried his hand at The Fool, a song by Lee Hasselwood, asking his daddy to shut the window to block out the fans' screams. It's funny to think about Elvis imagining fans outside his window. In 1960, while staying in Bel Air, Elvis recorded a rough version of Birthday Cake, showing his Jerry Lee Lewis influences but in a muffled way. He also worked on Make Believe from Showboat, which could have been a great fit for his Vegas acts. These recordings show Elvis's ongoing experimentation with different styles and songs. One day, Elvis messed around with a song called I Wonder. It felt like he was creating it on the spot, with his friends singing along. These impromptu sessions were a big part of Elvis's creative process, full of laughter and spontaneity. It's a shame that not more of these sessions were officially recorded, especially the time the Beatles met Elvis in 1965. Colonel Parker and Brian Epstein decided not to document this meeting, missing a chance to capture history. In 1966, while making a film in Hollywood, Elvis helped Red West record some new songs. Elvis added harmonies, showing his versatility. Songs like I've Been Blue and Mary Lou Brown could have been perfect for Elvis. He also worked on demos, sometimes sending them to Colonel Parker marked with derogatory labels, like one marked shit. Parker wasn't happy about it, showing how sensitive the industry could be. Despite having a successful film, record, and music publishing career that made $5 million in 1965, Elvis still had a deep love for gospel music. He recorded songs like Show Me Thy Way, O Lord, and If I Loved You, demonstrating his roots and comfort in this genre. Elvis also experimented with other styles, like R&B. He recorded After Loving You, showing how Conway Twitty might sing it, which was both amusing and entertaining. This kind of playful approach to music was a hallmark of Elvis's creativity. In the studio, Elvis often recorded vocals with musicians' pre-recorded backgrounds, but he had more control with songs like Indescribably Blue. Here he worked on the song alone, deciding how to approach it. He also collaborated with Felton Jarvis on Suppose, a song that later appeared in the movie Speedway. Elvis's love for Dean Martin and Guy Mitchell led him to record their songs, sometimes with mixed results. His rendition of Dark Moon is worth listening to, showing his 6-minute improvisation and musical exploration. By 1971, Elvis was recording songs like I'm Still Here and I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen, showing his ongoing interest in gospel and classic ballads. In 1973, he recorded another Ivory Joe Hunter song, I Will Be True. Despite the quality of his studio recordings sometimes being questionable, the snippets that have surfaced are always fascinating. Elvis's home recordings give us a glimpse into his creative process, his love for different genres, and his ability to make music with anyone around him. These recordings, though imperfect, are a treasure trove for fans and musicians alike, offering a unique look into the life and art of Elvis Presley. In December 1963, something special happened on British TV. The Beatles were on a show called Jukebox Jury. They talked about a song by Elvis called Kiss Me Quick. Even though the song won, the Beatles didn't really like it. George called it a load of rubbish and Ringo said it made him feel like he was going to jail. The songwriter, Mort Schumann, agreed. He said he would have preferred a different song for Elvis. Elvis was working super hard back then. He was making lots of movies and recording songs non-stop. He made so many songs in just a few nights that it's amazing. Between 1960 and 1964, he made 15 million selling singles. In 1964, he got a gold record for selling 1 million copies of a Christmas album he made back in 1957. Elvis's movies were very popular too. He was one of the top 5 movie stars in the US, but things were starting to change. People began to feel that Elvis's movies were getting old. They thought he might be too familiar, like David Cameron said about Tony Blair many years later. The Beatles' arrival in the US was a huge deal. When they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, 70 million people watched. They played around pretending to be Elvis, showing how good they were at performing and talking to the press. This made people see them as fresh and exciting compared to Elvis, who was starting to feel like the old hero. Elvis's new movie, Kissin' Cousins, wasn't very good. The story was silly and the songs weren't great. It was like he was just going through the motions. Even his charity work had issues. He gave a yacht to a charity, but it wasn't safe, so they wouldn't take it. Some people thought Elvis was trying too hard to be cool, like in Kissin' Cousins. The movie was about the military and a hillbilly, with lots of jokes that weren't funny. But despite all this, Elvis's films, Viva Las Vegas and Kissin' Cousins, were still big hits. They showed that Elvis still had lots of fans of all ages. Elvis's producer, Hal Wallis, said these movies meant Elvis was still a huge box office draw. This was true, but Wallis was also thinking about renegotiating Elvis's contract, which meant talking about money. Even though Elvis was making lots of money, there were whispers that the songs he was singing were not his true passion. While all this was happening, the Beatles were taking over the music scene in the US. They were breaking records and selling tons of albums. Elvis saw them and probably felt the pressure. He then made another movie, Roustabout, which was set in a fun fair. The producer, Colonel Parker, even got to dress up and be part of the movie. Elvis had his moments of fun in Roustabout, like riding a motorcycle, but he had problems on set. He argued with the director and wanted to leave a few times. There were also scenes with a stunt double instead of Elvis, which shows how much stars back then avoided risks. Despite the challenges, Elvis still had a special charm. A man who worked with him said Elvis was hard to ignore. Everyone would look at him even if they were right next to him because of his charisma. In the end, Elvis was a huge star, but things were changing. New music and new stars like the Beatles were capturing people's hearts. Elvis was trying to keep up, making movies and music, but it was getting harder. His story shows how even the biggest stars can face challenges when the world around them is changing fast.